The deadbolt slammed home at exactly 11:03 p.m. That was the only gift my stepmother, Elsie, gave me for my 18th birthday. Inside the warm foyer, my father, Alexander, watched through the frosted glass, then turned his back. He didn't look sad, he looked relieved. I stood on the porch as the Minneapolis wind chill hit 30 below zero. I had a backpack, $152, and nowhere to go. I started walking toward the abandoned garden shed 3 blocks away, my usual hiding spot. That's when a hand grabbed my wrist from the shadows. It was Miss Isabella, the homeless woman who lived on the corner. Her grip was iron tight. She didn't ask for money. She leaned in, eyes wide with terror, and whispered, "Do not sleep in that shed tonight, child. Get a hotel room. If you go back there, you won't wake up. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community." The wind didn't howl, it screamed. 30 degrees below zero isn't just cold, it's a physical assault. It strips the air from your lungs and turns your eyelashes into needles. I didn't run. Running implies panic, and panic burns energy I couldn't afford to waste. I walked 1 foot in front of the other, boots crunching against the packed ice, heading toward the neon flicker of the Starlight Motel Miss Isabella had pointed out. I didn't look back at the house. There was no point. The warmth behind those windows wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to Elsie, my stepmother, and Tanner, the stepbrother who had smiled as the door clicked shut. The motel lobby smelled like stale smoke and desperation. The clerk didn't look up from his phone when I slid $40 across the counter. He didn't ask for ID. He didn't ask why an 18-year-old girl was checking in alone at midnight with nothing but a backpack. He just slid a key across the form. It was a transaction, pure and simple. Room 12 was freezing. I cranked the heater until it rattled and groaned, smelling of burning dust. I sat on the edge of the mattress, still in my coat, watching my breath plume in the air. This was the moment where I was supposed to break. This was the moment the tears were supposed to come hot and fast. Mourning the family I had just lost, but my eyes were dry. I stared at the peeling wallpaper and thought about my father, Alexander, the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man who used to sneak me extra dessert before Elsie moved in. For years I had told myself he was a victim too, that he was just weak, bullied into submission by a wife who demanded absolute control. I had told myself that deep down he was still on my side, just waiting for the right moment to stand up. Tonight I realized that was a lie. He hadn't been bullied into silence, he had been conditioned into it. It's a trap, really, the slow, insidious normalization of cruelty. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts with small concessions. Don't argue with her, Sydney, it just makes it worse. Just apologize, Sydney, keep the peace. He had traded pieces of my dignity for his own comfort, day after day, year after year. By the time tonight happened, there was nothing left of him to fight back. He wasn't a hostage in that house, he was a volunteer. He watched his only daughter get evicted into a blizzard, and he calculated the cost of intervening. He decided the price. Elsie's rage was too high. He didn't turn his back on me because he was ashamed. He turned his back because the transaction was complete. He had chosen his peace over my survival. I took a deep breath, the air finally warming up enough to not sting my throat. I unzipped my coat. I didn't hate him. Hate is a passionate emotion, and I didn't have the energy for passion. I felt clarity. The father I loved was gone, replaced by a man who was simply a liability. I checked the lock on the door one more time. I wedged a chair under the handle. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a problem they had tried to dispose of. And tomorrow I was going to find out exactly why Miss Isabella had looked so terrified. I closed my eyes, not to sleep but to wait. The sun wasn't even fully up when I met Isabella. The next morning the wind had died down, leaving the city frozen under a layer of diamond hard ice. Isabella was waiting at a 24-hour diner, nursing a cup of black coffee she'd probably been making last for 3 hours. She didn't look like a crazy homeless lady. She looked sharp, Her eyes were clear, her posture straight despite the layers of worn coats. She slid a tablet across the table. The screen was cracked, but the video was clear enough. I used to be legal secretary Sydney, she said, her voice raspy but precise. 30 years. I know how people hide things and I know how they get sloppy. She pressed play. It was night vision footage from a trail camera. Isabella had mounted it on a tree overlooking the abandoned garden shed. My shed, the timestamp was 11:45 p.m. last night, 45 minutes after I'd been kicked out. A figure walked into the frame. Tanner, my stepbrother. He wasn't looking for me, he was carrying a shovel. I watched my stomach turning to lead as he started piling snow against the shed door. He wasn't clearing a path, he was packing it thick, heavy, wet snow, layer after layer, banking it up against the only exit until it was a solid wall of ice. He worked methodically. He checked the windows already boarded up from the outside, then he stopped. He looked at the shed where he thought I was sleeping, and he laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh, it was the sound of someone who had solved a problem. He pulled out his phone, typed a quick text, and walked away. Video ended. I stared at the black screen. If I had been in there, if I had fallen asleep, the temperature dropped to 30 below, with the door barricaded. The airflow would have been cut off, the cold would have seeped in. I wouldn't have woken up. That wasn't an eviction, Isabella said softly. That was a tomb. I looked up at her, the anger that had been a cold knot in my chest suddenly expanded, filling my lungs, my throat, my eyes. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was rage, pure crystalline rage. Why, I whispered, why would he do that? I was already gone, because you turning 18 means the trust fund unlocks, Isabella said, and if you're not there to sign for it, who gets it? My father. It hit me then. The eviction wasn't punishment. It was a setup. They needed me gone, but they couldn't just let me leave. If I left, I could come back, I could claim the money. They needed me erased. I looked at the tablet again. That wasn't just a prank, that was attempted murder. I didn't cry, my reaction wasn't fear. It was a cold, calcified realization. I reached out and took the tablet. The fear was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. We're going to the police, I said, and then I'm going to the bank. Isabella smiled, a thin, wolfish expression. Good girl, let's go bury them. Isabella drove her battered station wagon to the 4th precinct. It smelled like old upholstery and determination. I sat in the passenger seat, the tablet clutched in my lap like a weapon. The police station was exactly how you'd imagine it, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the smell of stale coffee and industrial cleaner hanging in the air. Detective Miller was a tired-looking man with salt and pepper hair and a permanent frown. He watched the video without blinking. When it finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. Attempted manslaughter, he muttered. Reckless endangerment at the very least. We'll pick him up. I should have felt relieved. I should have felt safe. Instead, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. And my stepmother? I asked. Elsie Miller shook his head. The video shows the boy. We can question him about her involvement, but right now the warrant is for Tanner. They arrested Tanner an hour later. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought Elsie would realize she'd lost, but I underestimated the sheer desperation of a woman watching her future slip away. My burner phone buzzed 2 hours after the arrest. Text from an unknown number: come home and sign the papers. Sydney, or the cold won't be the only thing that hurts you. I baited him out. He's angry. The message was chilling in its simplicity. She had used the family funds, my trust funds, technically to bail out the person who tried to kill me. She wasn't retreating, she was escalating. Why is she doing this? I asked Isabella, showing her the phone. She knows the police are involved. She knows there's evidence. Isabella studied the text, her expression grim. It's called an extinction burst, Sydney. In psychology, it's what happens when a behavior that used to be reinforced suddenly stops working. When a toddler screams louder because you stop giving them candy. When a manipulator realizes their control is gone. She looked at me, her eyes serious. Elsie has controlled your Father your life and the money for years now. The deadline is 48 hours away if you don't sign those papers. Over to her, she loses everything. She's not thinking rationally anymore. She's a cornered animal, and cornered animals attack. My phone buzzed again, an email. Notification. Account frozen, then another access denied. Elsie was systematically locking me out of every student account. Every small safety net I had left. She was trying to starve me out. Then the social media notifications started. My phone lit up with messages from high school friends. Is it true? Are you okay? I opened Facebook. There was a long rambling post from Elsie tagged with my name. Please help us find our daughter Sydney. She's had a mental break. Drugs are involved. We're so worried. If you see her, do not approach. Call us immediately. It was a master class in manipulation. She was painting me as unstable, dangerous, an addict. She was discrediting me before I could even speak. My father called. I stared at the screen, his name flashing like a warning. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to it later, his voice thick with what sounded like tears but felt like guilt. Sydney, please. Tearing this family apart. Just come home. We can fix this. It's all a misunderstanding. Tanner didn't mean it. A misunderstanding. Attempted murder was a misunderstanding. I looked at Isabella. She's trying to bury me. I said. She's trying to make sure no one believes me. Isabella smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let her try. She's fighting a war with rumors. We're going to fight with ink. She reached into her bag and pulled out a fresh notepad. Get some sleep, Sydney. Tomorrow we go to the bank and we don't wear hoodies. We dress for war. The next morning I woke up with a plan. No more hiding, no more hoodies. I dug through my backpack and pulled out the only formal outfit I owned, a black blazer I'd bought for a school debate, and a white blouse. It wasn't designer, but it was clean, it was sharp, it was armor. Isabella watched me dress, nodding approval. You look like trouble, she said, the good kind. We walked into the First National Bank downtown at 9:00 sharp. The lobby was expansive, all marble columns and hushed tones. It smelled of money, old quiet money. I marched up to the reception desk, Isabella trailing behind me like a bodyguard in a trench coat. I'm Sydney, I told the receptionist. I'm here to see the senior trustee for the grandfather's estate. The receptionist blinked, her eyes darting from my thrifted blazer to Isabella's worn boots. Do you have an appointment? I don't need one, I said, sliding my ID across the polished wood. I'm the beneficiary and I'm here to sign. Before she could answer, the glass doors behind us slid open. Elsie strode in, flanked by my father and a man in a cheap suit who looked like a lawyer. Sydney. Elsie's voice cut through the quiet lobby. She looked immaculate as always, but her eyes were frantic. Thank God we found you. We've been so worried. She rushed toward me, arms open, playing the concerned mother perfectly. My father hung back, looking at the floor. Stop, I said. I didn't shout, I didn't step back, I just held up a hand. Elsie froze. Honey, please. Let's go home. You're not well. We can talk about the trust later. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I turned back to the receptionist. Call the trustee now. The lawyer stepped forward. Miss, I represent your parents. They have medical power of attorney. You're not in a state to make financial decisions. She's perfectly lucid, Isabella interjected, her voice sharp as a razor. And unless you have a court order declaring her incompetent, she has every right to be here. Now step back before I call security and have you removed for harassment. The lawyer blinked, surprised by the homeless woman quoting legal procedure. The elevator doors pinged open. An older man in a gray suit stepped out. He looked for me too. Elsie, then at the ID on the desk. Miss Sydney, he asked. That's me, I said. I missed her. Henderson, the senior trustee. I've been expecting you. Elsie lunged forward. You can't let her sign anything. She's unstable. Mr. Henderson stopped. He looked at Elsie with a cold, professional disdain. Mrs. Elsie, the terms of the trust are explicit. Beneficiary turns 18. She signs unless you have a court order. Elsie faltered. She didn't. She had nothing but bluffs and threats. I didn't think so, Henderson said. He ushered Isabella and me into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw Elsie's mask slip. The concern vanished, replaced by pure naked panic. She knew it was over. In the office upstairs, Henderson laid out the documents. It was a mountain of paperwork. I signed page after page, my hands steady. Sydney. Sydney, Sydney. With every signature, I felt a weight lifting off my chest. I wasn't just claiming money, I was claiming my life. There's one more thing, I said, capping the pen. The subsidiary accounts, the ones my father and stepmother use for expenses. Henderson nodded. The allowance cards. Yes, cancel them, I said. Freeze everything, the house, the cars, the credit lines, all of it. Henderson typed a few commands into his computer. Done. As of this moment, they don't have access to a single penny of this estate. I leaned back in the leather chair. I was safe, I was free. Then Henderson cleared his throat. He pulled a thick, sealed envelope from a drawer. There is a secondary matter, he said. Grandfather added a codicil to the trust a week before he died. Negligence liability clause. I frowned. What does that mean? It means, Henderson said, sliding the envelope across the desk, that he suspected something like this might happen. He stipulated that if you were ever found to be in a state of distress caused by your guardians, the trust would automatically fund a private investigation and prosecution against them. He opened the folder. Inside were bank records, Elsie's spending history, and a retainer agreement for a top-tier criminal prosecution firm. By trying to hurt you, Henderson said, they triggered the clause. The estate isn't just yours, Sydney, it's now the bankroll for their destruction. I stared at the papers. The irony was suffocating. They had tried to kill me for the money, and now that same money was going to pay to put them in prison. Do you want to initiate the proceedings? Henderson asked. I looked at Isabella. She gave me a small nod. Yes, I said. Proceed. A week later, the temperature in Minneapolis finally broke freezing. I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, a small warm studio with big windows. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. There was a knock on the door. I didn't flinch. I checked the peephole. My father stood there. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. His coat was thin, his face gray with stubble. He was shivering. I opened the door, but I didn't step back. I blocked the entrance. Sydney, he rasped, his voice cracking. Please, can I come in? It's cold. I know, I said. I remember. He looked past me into the warmth of the apartment. We lost the house, he said. The trust foreclosed. Elsie, she's gone. She took what cash was left and ran before the indictment came down. Tanner is juvie. I have nowhere to go. He looked at me with wet, pleading eyes. I'm your father, Sydney. Family sticks together. I didn't know it would go this far. I thought you'd be okay. You didn't think. I corrected him. You calculated. You weighed your comfort against my life, and you chose comfort. Now the bill is due. He reached out a shaking hand. Please, just for tonight. I looked at his hand, the same hand that had turned the deadbolt on me a week ago. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single key. It was old and rusted. The key to the garden shed air. From the door before sunset. He stared at the key, his face crumbling. Sydney, you watched me freeze for 18 years, Dad. I said, my voice steady and cold. Now you can watch yourself. I stepped back and closed the door. The sound of the lock clicking shut was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It was final. It was justice. Inside the apartment was quiet, but it wasn't empty. Miss Isabella was sitting in the armchair by the window, reading a book, a cup of tea steaming on the side table. Chloe was in the kitchenette stirring a pot of soup that smelled like rosemary. In time, was that him? Isabella asked. Without looking up. Yeah, I said. Is he gone? He's gone. I walked over to the window. Outside, the snow was melting. The sun, the world was thawing. I looked at Isabella, the woman who saved my life for nothing but kindness. I looked at Chloe, the friend who stood by me when I had nothing. I thought I lost my family, I said quietly. Isabella closed her book and smiled. You didn't lose a family, Sydney. You survived a hostage situation and now you're free. I sat down on the rug, the sunlight warming my face for the first time in 18 years. I wasn't cold, I was home. If you've ever had to choose your own peace over a toxic family member, leave a heart in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to know they aren't alone.